At 58, I worked 5 extra years to buy my 30-year-old son a house. When I asked, "Did you like it?" he replied, "I gave it to my wife, she loved it." That's when I made a decision that changed my life. Listen, I'm going to tell you something that happened to me 3 days ago and still has me tossing in bed like a sick dog. Because you think you know your children, right? You believe that after 30 years of raising them, sacrificing for them, you can predict what they'll say, what they'll do. But you're wrong, dead wrong. I'm Robert Martinez. I'm 58 years old, and I've worked since I was 16 at Peterson Steel Works here in Detroit. You can see my hands weathered, with scars from hot metal and fingers that don't straighten quite right anymore. But these are hands that built a life, that put food on the table every single day for more than 4 decades. Last Tuesday was my son David's 30th birthday. My only son, the boy who was born when I was 28 and believed the world was a generous place where working hard was enough to get everything you wanted. You know what I did for that birthday? I bought him a house, a whole house, with deed, no mortgage, no debt. A little 2-bedroom house in Warren, with a small yard but green grass and a cherry tree that gives sweet cherries like the ones my grandmother used to eat when I was a kid. I took the day off, something I do maybe twice a year, and dressed in my blue suit, the one I wear for weddings and communions. I combed my gray hair back with pomade and shaved so close I looked 20 years younger, because I wanted to be perfect for this moment. I wanted my son to remember me like this, as the father who gave him the house of his dreams on his 30th birthday. I grabbed the keys, which had been specially polished by the notary, and put them in a red velvet box I'd bought at Miller's Jewelry on Main Street. An expensive box, the kind you keep forever. I'd been paying for the house in installments for 5 years. 5 years working Saturdays and Sundays, doing overtime until my eyes closed at the lathe, eating bologna sandwiches every lunch, because every dollar I saved was another dollar toward David's house. His mother, rest her soul, had told me before she died, "Robert, make sure the boy has his own roof when he gets married. Don't let him go through what we went through, renting our whole lives." And I promised her, I promised my Martha, while she was wasting away in that hospital bed, that our son would have his house. So there I was, standing in front of the intercom of the building where David lives with his wife Vanessa, a modern building, one of those with mirrored glass and plants at the entrance. Nothing like the tenement where I grew up in Southwest Detroit, sleeping 4 to a room. I pressed the buzzer with fingers trembling like leaves. It was strange being nervous to see my own son, but that's how it was. Since he married Vanessa 2 years ago, I feel like there's an invisible wall between us, like I'm a visitor in his life, not his father. "Who is it?" I heard his voice distorted through the intercom. "It's me, David. Your old man." A silence. Always that damn 3-second silence that breaks my heart every time I visit. "Oh, hi, Dad. Weren't we meeting on Sunday?" It's your birthday, son. I wanted to bring you your gift." Another silence. Then the sound of the door buzzing open. I climbed the 4 flights by stairs, even though there was an elevator, because I needed time to calm down. On each step I thought about what I was going to say. "Son, here's your house." "No," sounded too dry. "David, this is for you and your happiness." "No good either," sounded like a TV commercial. When I reached the 4th floor, he already had the door open. My David, 30 years old, brown hair like mine when I was young, but well cut, neat. He wore a light blue polo shirt from one of those expensive brands and jeans that looked new. He was barefoot, and that gave me tenderness because it reminded me of when he was little and ran around the house without shoes, and Martha would scold him, but then laugh. "Hi, Dad," he said, and kissed my cheek. A polite kiss, quick, like you'd give an uncle you rarely see. "Happy birthday, son," I said, and felt my voice crack a little. 30 years ago exactly I'd held that wrinkled red baby in my arms, promising him I'd protect him from everything. Thanks, Dad. Come in. The apartment smelled like furniture wax and expensive perfume. Everything was spotless. The sofa cushions perfectly arranged, the coffee table without a single mark, the plants watered and shining. It was nice, I won't deny it, but cold, like a furniture store display. Is Vanessa here? I asked, though I hadn't seen her. Yes, she's showering. She'll be out soon. I sat on the edge of the sofa, because I was afraid of dirtying it with my pants, that no matter how much I'd ironed them twice, always smell like the shop. David sat in the chair across from me, crossed his legs, and looked at me with that polite smile he'd perfected in recent years. How are you doing, Dad? Everything good at work? Always the same question, as if my life was reduced to just work, as if I didn't have dreams, fears, joys beyond the steel mill. Good, son. Good. Here, working as always. I took the red box from my jacket pocket. I brought you something special for your birthday. His eyes fixed on the box. And for a second, just a second, I saw my 5-year-old boy anxiously waiting for Christmas presents. That bright, expectant look that had accompanied me through so many birthdays when we were poor but happy. I held out the box. He took it carefully, as if it were something delicate. Dad, you didn't have to. Open it, I interrupted. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. David opened the box, slowly. When he saw the keys, his forehead wrinkled in confusion. They're keys? They're the keys to your house, David. He went completely still. Completely still. Completely still. The keys gleamed gold against the red velvet, and I could see my reflection distorted in his pupils. What house, Dad? Your house. The one I bought you. A little house in Warren, with 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, a yard with a cherry tree. The words tumbled out. It's yours, David. All yours. No debt, no mortgage, nothing. So you and Vanessa can start your life together properly. I don't know what response I expected. A smile, a hug, tears of emotion, a thanks, Dad. You're the best father in the world. Something that would justify 5 years of sacrifice, 5 years eating rice and eggs to save every penny. But David looked at me steadily, closed the box slowly, and put it on the coffee table. Dad, we can't accept this. The words hit me like a hammer to the chest. What do you mean you can't accept it? It's a gift, David. It's your birthday gift. It's too much, Dad. A house. It's too much. Too much? I stood up from the sofa. Too much for my son? Too much for the boy I raised, who I took to school every day, who I cared for when he had fever, who... Dad, calm down. I won't calm down. Damn it. My voice came out louder than I wanted. I worked 5 years to buy you this house. 5 years, David. Do you have any idea what 5 years of double shifts means? Do you have any idea how many dinners I skipped? How many Sundays I didn't rest? How many times I didn't buy myself even a new pair of shoes to be able to pay for this house? David stood up too, but maintained that calm, controlled expression that drove me crazy. Dad, I didn't ask you to do that. Those 6 words split me in half. I stood there, feeling the air leave my lungs like someone had punched me in the stomach. You didn't ask me, I repeated, barely audible. You didn't ask me. At that moment, Vanessa appeared, coming from the hallway leading to the bedrooms. She wore a white dress that cost more than my weekly salary, and her hair was pulled back in a perfect bun. She was pretty, I won't deny it. Blonde, elegant, one of those women who never sweat and always smell like roses. Hello, Robert. She greeted me with that smile that always seemed a bit forced. How are you? Fine, Vanessa. I was trying to compose myself, but my voice was strained. She looked at the box on the table, then at us too, standing like roosters ready to fight. "Did something happen?" she asked. David sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Dad brought me a gift. The keys to a house." "A house?" Vanessa's voice went up half an octave, but there was something strange about her surprise, like it was acted. "What house?" "A house in Warren," I said, regaining some composure. "For you too, so you can live peacefully." Vanessa approached the table and opened the box, her eyes fixed on the keys, but her expression wasn't surprise. It was something else, an expression I couldn't quite decipher. "Robert," she began, but stopped. "What?" I asked. "Do you also think it's too much?" "It's not that," she said, but she wasn't looking me in the eyes. "It's just, we already have this apartment. We're comfortable here." "This apartment is rented," I said. "The house is owned. It's yours." "But Warren is very far from our jobs," David intervened, "and we have our whole life set up here." I looked at both of them, standing there, him with his expensive polo, and her with her white dress, and I felt like I was talking to strangers, to people who knew nothing about sacrifice, nothing about a father's love, nothing at all. "You know what?" I said, and my voice came out harder than I intended. "Take the time you need to think about it. The keys will be here. When you decide, let me know." I headed toward the door, but David's voice stopped me. "Dad, wait." I turned around. He had the box in his hands again. "We'll go see it," he said. "The house. Tomorrow if you want to get to know it." Enormous relief flooded my chest. "Really?"
Yes, you're right.
"At least we have to see it before deciding anything." Vanessa looked at him with surprise, but said nothing. "Great," I said, smiling for the first time that afternoon. "Tomorrow after work I'll come pick you up. At 6, and we'll go together." "Perfect," said David. And this time, his smile seemed genuine. I left there with my heart a bit lighter, thinking maybe I'd misunderstood everything. Maybe my son just needed time to process the enormity of the gift. But there was something in Vanessa's eyes that worried me, a look I couldn't fully decipher, like she was calculating something, like she already had a plan. The next day, Wednesday, I couldn't concentrate at work. I spent the whole day watching the clock, anxious for 6 o'clock to arrive. The supervisor, Miller, asked me 3 times if I felt okay because he'd seen me distracted, and I almost hurt myself with a piece I was welding. "I'm fine, Chief," I lied, "just a bit tired." But it wasn't tiredness. It was expectation. It was that mix of joy and nerves you get when you're about to show something important to someone you love. At 5:15, I was already putting away my tools. I washed my hands with industrial soap until they were red, combed my hair in front of the broken mirror in the locker room, and put on the clean shirt I'd brought in a bag. I arrived at David's building at 10 to 6. I pressed the buzzer, and he answered immediately, as if he'd been waiting by the intercom. "Coming down right away, Dad." I waited standing on the sidewalk watching people pass by. Detroit at 6 in the evening is an anthill. Everyone running, everyone hurried, everyone with unfriendly faces. I wondered if my David also had that face when he went to work, if he'd also lost that ability to enjoy simple things he had as a child. He came down alone, without Vanessa. "Where's your wife?" I asked. "She doesn't feel well. Headache," he explained, as we walked to where I'd left my old Chevy Malibu. But she told me to tell her everything afterward. I didn't believe him. Vanessa didn't have a headache. Vanessa didn't want to come. Vanessa had other plans, but I didn't say anything, because I didn't want to ruin the moment. The trip to Warren took 40 minutes. 40 minutes in which David told me about his work at the tech company, about a new project they were developing, about a trip he and Vanessa were planning for the end of the year. I listened while driving, glancing at him occasionally, enjoying having him there sitting next to me, like when he was little, and I took him to see the Lions games. When we arrived at the house, it was already getting dark. The street was quiet, with wide sidewalks and trees on both sides. The houses were all different, some bigger, others smaller, but all with that family neighborhood warmth you don't find downtown anymore. I parked in front of number 847, my house, my son's house. It was a single-story house, with stone-textured siding and black railings. The front yard was small, but had green grass and some plants with red flowers that the previous owner had lovingly cared for. The main door was solid wood, painted dark green, that gave it a cozy air. "This is it," I said, turning off the engine. David stared at the house from inside the car. His expression was impossible to decipher. "Do you like it?" I asked. "It's nice, Dad." We got out and approached the door. I took out the keys, my set of keys, because I also had a set, and opened it. The smell that greeted us was of a closed house, but not unpleasant. It was the smell of a home waiting to be inhabited. I turned on the lights, and we went in. The living room was spacious, with large windows facing the front yard. The floors were hardwood, a bit worn but solid and warm. The previous owner had left some furniture, a two-seat sofa, upholstered in beige fabric, a wooden table with 4 chairs, and an empty bookshelf waiting to be filled with books. "Here you can put your big TV," I said, pointing to the back wall. "And here, look, there's room for a bigger table if you want to have people over for dinner." David walked slowly, touching the walls, looking at the ceilings. He didn't say much, but his eyes were registering every detail. We went to the kitchen. It was spacious, with white-painted wood cabinets and a granite countertop that gleamed under the fluorescent light. The refrigerator and stove were new, the best I could afford. "Look, David," I said, opening the door to the backyard. "Here you can barbecue on Sundays, and this is the cherry tree I told you about." We went out to the yard. It was small, as I'd said, but had something magical. The cherry tree was loaded with red fruits that gleamed like little gems in the evening twilight. There was also a vine climbing up a side wall, and a corner with prepared soil for a garden. "It's perfect for when you have children," I said, unable to contain myself. "The kids can play here, safe, without cars passing." David stayed quiet, looking at the cherry tree. In the semi-darkness, his profile reminded me so much of Martha that I got a lump in my throat. "Let's see the bedrooms," I said to cut through the emotional moment. We went back inside and walked down the hallway. The master bedroom was spacious, with a built-in closet taking up an entire wall and windows facing the yard. The second bedroom was smaller, but had natural light, and also faced the back. "This could be for when I come visit you," I joked. But David didn't laugh. The bathroom was complete, with tub and separate shower, white tiles, and a window ensuring good ventilation. We finished the tour back in the living room. David sat on the sofa the previous owner had left and rested his elbows on his knees, like he did when he was a teenager and had to make some important decision. "What do you think, son?" I asked, sitting in the chair facing him. "It's very nice, Dad." "But—" "No buts. It's very nice." We stayed silent for a few minutes. Outside you could hear the distant murmur of I-94 traffic and the occasional dog barking. Inside it was just us two, father and son, in a house I dreamed would be his home. "David," I said finally, "I want you to be happy. That's all I want, and I think you too will be happy here." He looked up and met my eyes directly. In that moment I saw something that reassured me. I saw love. I saw the son who hugged me when he had nightmares, the teenager who asked me for advice about girls, the young man who cried in my arms the day his mother died. "Dad," he said, You know I love you very much, right? Of course I know, son. And that I'm very grateful for everything you did for me. For everything you keep doing. You don't have to thank me for anything, David. I'm your father. It's my obligation. It's my— No, he interrupted. It's not your obligation. It's your love, and I value it. He got up from the sofa and approached the window facing the front yard. The street lights had started to come on, creating a warm atmosphere on the street. The house is beautiful, he said without turning around. It's perfect. My heart jumped with joy. Does that mean— It means we're going to move here, he said, and turned to look at me with a smile I hadn't seen in years. It means I accept your gift, Dad. I couldn't contain myself. I jumped up and hugged him tight, like I hadn't hugged him since he was little. He hugged me back, and for a moment, we were the dad and little boy we were, before life started pulling us apart. Thank you, son, I whispered in his ear. Thank you. Thank you, Dad, for everything. We separated, and I had moist eyes. He did too. When are you going to move? I asked. Give me a couple weeks to sort out the apartment lease and organize the move. But soon. And Vanessa? Is she okay with it? Vanessa will be okay with it, he said with a certainty that reassured me. When she sees the house, she'll fall in love like I did. We locked up the house and went back to the car. During the return trip, David was more talkative than ever. He told me his plans for the house, how they were going to decorate each room, what they were going to plant in the garden, how they were going to modernize the kitchen without losing its original charm. I listened fascinated, seeing how his eyes shone with enthusiasm. It was like I'd found my son again after years of searching. When I dropped him off at his building, he hugged me again before getting out. I love you, Dad, he said. And I love you, son. I love you. That night I slept better than I had in years. I dreamed of Martha, and in the dream she told me I'd kept my promise, that our son was going to have his own house, that I could be at peace. The days that followed were the happiest I'd lived since my wife's death. David called me every night to tell me about progress with the move, to consult me about some detail of the house, to plan together the improvements he wanted to make. Friday, he told me they'd already terminated the apartment lease. Saturday, he told me they'd bought new furniture for the dining room. Sunday, he asked me to accompany them to buy plants for the garden. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect. Monday, when I was having lunch in the steel mill cafeteria, I got a call from David. Dad, can you come to the house this afternoon? There's something we want to show you. Did something happen? I asked, with a strange premonition. No, nothing bad. On the contrary, Vanessa fell in love with the house. She wants you to see how she's decorating it. I arrived in Warren at 7 in the evening. From outside, the house looked different. They'd planted new flowers in the front yard, and warm light filtered through the windows. David opened the door with a huge smile, but there was something strange in his eyes, like he was acting. Dad, come in. You're going to love what Vanessa did. I went in and couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing. In 1 week they'd completely transformed the place. The living room had new furniture, a black leather sofa, a marble coffee table, state-of-the-art stereo equipment, and a giant TV hanging on the wall. David, I mumbled, amazed. How did you manage to— Vanessa has very good taste for decorating, he explained, but his voice sounded forced, and we got good prices. The kitchen had also changed. Stainless steel appliances, a giant 2-door refrigerator, and an automatic coffee machine that looked like it belonged in a 5-star cafe. This must have cost a fortune, I said. Vanessa knows how to get good prices, David repeated, like a mantra. At that moment she appeared, coming out of the master bedroom. She wore a tight red dress and high heels. For being at her house on a Monday afternoon, she was too dressed up. Robert, she exclaimed with a dazzling smile. What do you think? Do you like how it turned out? It's very nice, I managed to say. But something didn't add up. Come, let me show you the bedroom, she said, taking my arm with a familiarity that seemed strange. The master bedroom looked like a movie set, a king-size bed with a velvet upholstered headboard, silk curtains, Persian rugs, and even a curved screen TV on the wall. Did you like it? Vanessa asked, standing very close to me. Yes, it's very nice, I repeated, feeling something wasn't right. David had a brilliant idea, she continued, with that smile that now seemed more like a tiger than a woman. Want me to tell you? Vanessa, David intervened from the doorway, with a warning tone. No, it's okay, she said, without stopping looking at me. Robert has a right to know. Know what? I asked, though part of me no longer wanted to hear the answer. David told me to ask you something, Vanessa continued, moving even closer. Did you like the house, Robert? I loved it, I answered, confused by the question. Perfect, she said, and her smile got bigger, because I gave it to my sister. She loved it. The world stopped. The words reached my ears, as if they came from very far away, distorted, unreal. What did you say? That I gave the house to my sister. She and her husband needed to move, and when I told them about the little house in Warren, they went crazy. They loved the idea. Blood began to boil in my veins, slowly, like water starting to heat in a kettle. What do you mean you gave it to your sister? Well, actually we sold it, Vanessa clarified with a naturalness that chilled my bones. But we sold it to her, so it's like we gave it to her, don't you think? No, I said, and my voice came out like a muffled roar. I don't think so. David approached with his hands extended, as if he wanted to calm me. Dad, let me explain. Explain what, David? What do you have to explain to me? My voice came out so loud. The neighbors probably heard me. That house was for you. It was your home. It was the most important birthday gift I ever gave you in your whole life. And we're very grateful, said Vanessa with that cloying voice that already made me nauseous. That's why we used the money to buy this apartment and all these nice furniture. The house wasn't for selling. It was for living. But we're happier here, David intervened, and there was a plea in his voice. Here we have everything we need. I looked at both of them, him with his guilty, scared face, her with her satisfied smile, and for the first time in my life, I felt I hated someone from my own family. 5 years, I said, and my voice was barely a whisper. 5 years I worked to buy that house. I drove from Warren to downtown Detroit like an automaton. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, and I had a buzzing in my ears that wouldn't go away. The house was empty, completely empty. So what the hell had happened to my money? I parked the Malibu in front of the Wayne County Property Records Office and sat there for a few minutes trying to organize my thoughts. It was hot, and my car's air conditioning had stopped working 2 years ago, but I was cold, a cold that came from inside. I entered the building and got in line. There were about 20 people ahead of me, all with folders full of papers, all with that bureaucratic face people get when they have to deal with red tape. When my turn came, I was helped by a young woman, about 25 years old, with glasses and a bored expression. Good morning, she said, without looking up from the computer. How can I help you? I need to find out who owns a house, I said. Do you have the property ID number? No, but I have the address. Give me the address. 800 Sieben und 40 Maple Street, Warren. The girl started typing. I watched her and sweated like I was running a marathon, even though I was standing still. Here it is, she said after a few minutes. Single-family home, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Owner Robert Martinez, Idaho. That's me, I interrupted. She looked at me for the first time since I'd arrived. You're Robert Martinez? Yes. And what do you need to know if the house is yours? I need to know if there's been any recent transfer. If it was sold, mortgaged, anything. The girl typed again. No, she said. The house is still in your name. There hasn't been any movement in the last 6 months. I felt the world collapse on me for the second time in 2 days. Are you sure? Sure. The house is yours, free and clear of debts and liens. And there's no sale order? No proceedings in progress? Nothing? Why? Is there a problem? No, I lied. I just wanted to verify. I left the records office like a zombie. The house was mine. It was still mine. It had never been sold. So where had David and Vanessa gotten $120,000 to buy the apartment, the car, and all that furniture? I sat on a bench in the square, across from the records office, and tried to think clearly. But I couldn't. My head was full of noise, like a radio badly tuned. I took out my cell phone and called David. Dad, he answered on the second ring. His voice sounded strange, like he'd been waiting for my call. The house wasn't sold, I said without greetings or preambles. Silence on the other end. David, did you hear me? The house wasn't sold. Dad, I can explain. Then explain. Explain how the house is still in my name, is empty, and you have $120,000. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Where did you get the money, David? Another silence. Long, very long. Dad, can you come home? What home? The apartment you bought with money? I don't know where it came from. Yes, I need to talk to you. In person. Okay, but this time, I want the truth. The whole truth. Yes, he said. And for the first time in days his voice sounded like the son I knew. Scared, sorry, but sincere. I'm going to tell you everything. I arrived at David's building half an hour later. This time I looked at the garage, and indeed there was the gleaming white BMW, a car that cost more than what I earned in 2 years. I went up by elevator, but when I reached the 4th floor, the apartment door was open. David was waiting there, with a face I'd never seen on him, like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Hi, Dad, he said, and his voice was that of a 5-year-old who knows he's done something very bad. Where's Vanessa? I asked. She left. Left where? I don't know. She took a suitcase and left. She said she'd be back in a few days. We entered the apartment. Now that I saw it without Vanessa there, I realized how empty it felt, like all the life of the place had gone with her. David sat on the black leather sofa and covered his face with his hands. I stood there, waiting. Dad, he said, without taking his hands from his face, I didn't know anything. You didn't know anything about what? About what Vanessa did. What did Vanessa do, David? He looked up. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. She mortgaged the house. Those 3 words hit me like lightning. What did you say? She mortgaged the house. Without telling me. Without telling you, she forged my signature and mortgaged it. I sat in the chair across from the sofa because I felt my legs weren't going to hold me up. How did she forge your signature? She works at a bank, Dad. She knows people. She knows how to do those procedures. What bank? First National Bank, at the Dearborn branch. Things that hadn't made sense started to fit together. The way Vanessa knew all the details about loans, the confidence with which she talked about money, her contempt for my financial ignorance. And you didn't know anything? Nothing, Dad. I swear on Mom's memory. I thought we'd sold the house. She showed me papers, told me she'd found a buyer, that everything was arranged. What papers? Bank papers, contracts. Everything looked real. They were real, I said. But they weren't sale papers. They were mortgage papers. David nodded and started crying. I hadn't seen my son cry since Martha's funeral. Dad, I didn't know, he repeated between sobs. I swear I didn't know. And when did you find out? Last night. After you left. Vanessa told me the truth. What truth? David dried his eyes with his shirt sleeve and looked at me. That she took out a mortgage loan on the house for $130,000? $130,000? Yes. But she lied to me about the amount we received. She told me it was $120,000 from the sale, but it was actually $130,000 from the loan. And the other $10,000? She kept it. The anger I felt at that moment wasn't normal. It was something physical, something that burned me from inside. She kept it? Yes. She put it in an account in her name. For extra expenses, she told me. What extra expenses? I don't know, Dad. Clothes, spa, I don't know what shit. It was the first time I'd heard David swear in front of me. And what happens with the loan now? I asked. David got even paler. It has to be paid. How much per month? $2,000. $2,000 a month. I earned $800 a month, working 12 hours a day. And where are you going to get $2,000 a month? That's the million-dollar question, said David with a bitter laugh. Vanessa told me not to worry, that she had a plan. What plan? She wouldn't tell me. She just said that in 6 months we'd have the money to cancel the entire loan. Something about the way David said that made my hair stand on end. In 6 months? $130,000 in 6 months? That's what she told me. David, how much does your wife earn at the bank? $1,000 a month. $2,000 with commissions, in a good month. And how much do you earn? $1,500. So between you two, in a very good year, you can earn $40,000. How are you going to get $130,000 in 6 months? David looked at me without understanding. I don't know, Dad. She told me she had contacts, that she knew investment opportunities. Investment opportunities? I repeated his words. David, do you realize what you're telling me? What am I telling you? That your wife took out a loan for $130,000 with my house as collateral, promising that in 6 months she'd have that money to return it, without telling you where she was going to get it. David stayed quiet. Do you know what people who promise quick money without explaining where it comes from do? What do they do? Scams, David. They run scams. The word hung in the apartment air like a ghost. No, Dad. Vanessa wouldn't do that. Wouldn't do what? A scam? David, she already did it. She scammed you. She scammed me. She forged documents. Lied. Manipulated. What more do you need to realize who your wife is? She loves me, said David. But his voice didn't sound convincing even to himself. She loves you? Does someone who loves you put you in a $130,000 debt without consulting you? She said it was for our future. For her future, David. For her future. You were just the means to get the money. David jumped up from the sofa. Don't talk about my wife like that. Your wife screwed us all. Maybe, but she's still my wife. I looked at him and saw something that broke my heart. I saw a man who knew his world had collapsed, but couldn't accept it, who preferred to keep living the lie rather than face reality. David, I said more softly, sit down. He sat, but on the edge of the sofa, like he was ready to run. Do you love her? I asked. Yes. And do you think she loves you? Yes. I don't know. I used to think so. When did you start doubting? Last night, when she told me the truth. The way she told me. How did she tell you? Like it was something normal. Like lying to you and forging documents was something everyone does. I stayed quiet, waiting for him to continue. And when I asked her why she hadn't consulted me, she said it was because I wouldn't understand, that I was too naive for these matters. She called you naive? That was the word she used. What else did she say? David took a deep breath before answering. She told me that if I didn't like how she did things, I could leave, that she didn't need me for anything. Those words confirmed what I already knew. Vanessa had never loved David. She'd used him from the beginning. And where is she now? I asked. I told you I don't know. She left with a suitcase. But did she tell you when she's coming back? She said in a few days, that she had to arrange some things. What things? She wouldn't tell me. I kept thinking, a woman who had just confessed she'd scammed her husband and father-in-law, who leaves with a suitcase without saying where she's going or when she's coming back, didn't sound like someone who intended to return. David, I said, I want you to tell me something, and I want you to be honest. What? Do you think Vanessa is coming back? He stayed quiet for a long time. So long I started thinking he wasn't going to answer. No, he finally said, almost in a whisper. I don't think she's coming back. And why don't you think she's coming back? Because last night, when she was packing her suitcase, I heard her on the phone. Talking to whom? I don't know. But she was speaking in Spanish. Spanish? Yes. And I didn't know Vanessa spoke Spanish. Each thing he told me was worse than the last. What was she saying? I didn't understand much, but I heard her say something like "Todo está listo and estaré allí mañana." Everything is ready. I'll be there tomorrow. And where could she be now? I don't know, Dad. But what? This morning I went through her things. The clothes she took. The documents. What documents? She took her passport. And she took something else. What? A debit card I'd never seen. From a bank in Mexico. My blood froze. A bank in Mexico? Yes, Banco Santander. And did you know she had an account in Mexico? I had no idea. We both sat quietly, processing the implications of all this. A woman who forges documents to get a $130,000 loan, who has a secret account in Mexico, who speaks Spanish without her husband knowing, who disappears with a suitcase after confessing everything. David, I said, do you realize what's happening here? I don't know what's happening. Your wife isn't who you think she is. What do you mean? I mean, all this was planned from the beginning. The marriage, the relationship, everything. That can't be. Why can't it be? A woman who has secret accounts abroad, who speaks languages you don't know she speaks, who can forge documents. Did that woman fall in love with you by chance? David started crying again. Dad, please. David, I need you to answer something. How did you meet Vanessa? At a bar. 3 years ago. Which bar? One in downtown Detroit. It was a night I went out with the guys from work. And what was she doing there? She was with some friends, celebrating something. What were they celebrating? I don't remember. I think one of their birthdays. And did she talk to you? Or did you talk to her? She talked to me. Do you remember what she said? David dried his eyes and tried to remember. She asked what work I did. I told her I worked in tech. Then she asked if I lived alone. She asked, if you lived alone? Yes. And I told her yes, but that my dad had raised me alone after my mom died. And what did she say? She said it was very sad to lose a mother young. And she asked how you'd managed to raise me alone. What else did she ask? She asked what my dad did for work. I told her you worked at a steel mill. She asked if you owned your house. I stopped there. She asked if I owned my house. Yes. In the first conversation you had? Yes. Well, maybe not the first, but it was one of the first things she asked me. The puzzle pieces started fitting together in my head. David, don't you find it strange that a woman you just met in a bar asks about your father's properties? Now that you put it that way. What else did she ask? She asked if you had plans to buy more properties. If we were a family with money. And what did you tell her? I told her we weren't rich, but that you worked hard and always said you wanted to buy me a house when I got married. David suddenly went quiet, like he just realized something horrible. My God, he murmured. What? I asked, though I already knew what he'd understood. She knew. From the beginning she knew you were going to give me a house. Exactly. That's why she approached me. That's why she married me. For the house. Exactly. David stood up and started pacing around the apartment like a caged animal. It can't be, he repeated. It can't be. David, stop for a second. He stopped and looked at me. Did she know Mom had died? Yes, I told her that same night. And what did she say? She said she understood my pain. That she'd also lost her mother. She'd lost her mother? That's what she told me. And when had her mother supposedly died? When she was 15. Cancer. And did you meet her family? David went quiet. David, did you meet Vanessa's family? No, he admitted. She told me she had no family, that she only had a sister who lived far away. The sister Linda, who supposedly bought the house? Yes. But did you meet Linda? No. Vanessa always said they were fighting. And didn't it seem strange to marry someone whose family you didn't know? It seemed strange. But she told me it was better that way, that her family was very problematic, and she preferred I not have contact with them. And the wedding? It was civil, just us two. And the witnesses. What witnesses? 2 courthouse employees. I didn't have anyone, and neither did she. I didn't go to my son's wedding. You were working. It was a Wednesday afternoon. Vanessa said she preferred something intimate. Every answer confirmed the same thing. Everything had been calculated so Vanessa could handle it however she wanted. David, I said, I need you to tell me something else. Does Vanessa really work at First National Bank? Yes. Well, she worked. She quit 2 months ago. She quit? Why? She said she wanted to take time to think about what to do with her career. And what did you live on these 2 months? My savings. What savings? I had about $5,000 saved. Vanessa used it to pay rent, food, her things. She spent it all? All of it. I stayed quiet, adding again, $130,000 from the loan, plus $5,000 from David's savings, plus who knows how much from the secret account in Mexico. David, your wife stole more than $135,000. How? $130,000 from the loan, $5,000 from your savings, and probably more money from places we still don't know about. But we used the loan money to buy the apartment and the car. Are you sure? Yes. Well, I thought so. Did you see the apartment purchase papers? Vanessa handled all that. She showed me the contracts already signed. And didn't it seem strange that she handled everything? She told me that since she worked at a bank, she understood those matters better. And the car? The same. She went alone to buy it. She told me she'd gotten a very good deal. A horrible idea started forming in my head. David, do you have the apartment papers? Yes. They're in the desk. Bring them to me. David went to the desk in a corner of the living room and brought a folder. I opened the folder and started reviewing the papers. Cease contract, deposit receipt, contract of... David, I said. What? This isn't a purchase contract. What? You didn't buy this apartment. You rented it. That can't be... Look, I said, showing him the paper. Lease agreement, 3 years. Deposit $5,000. Monthly rent, $1,000. David read the contract like it was the first time he'd seen it. I don't understand, he murmured. Vanessa told me we'd bought it. Vanessa lied to you. Again. And the car? I don't know. Where are the car papers? They're also in the folder. I went through the folder until I found the BMW papers. I read them once. I read them again. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. David, I said, this car isn't yours either. What? It's in the name of a company. Something called Southern Financial Services, LLC. What company is that? I have no idea. Do you know it? I've never heard of that company. And here it says, it's a long-term rental car. 2 years, $800 per month. David collapsed on the sofa. It can't be, he repeated. It can't be. But it could be. And it was. David, do you realize what happened? He looked at me with the eyes of a lost child. Vanessa took out a loan for $130,000, using my house as collateral. With that money, she rented this apartment, rented the car, bought furniture to make it look like they'd used the money on legitimate things, and kept the rest. How much was the rest? I did quick calculations. $5,000 apartment deposit, $15,000 in furniture being generous, $800 per month for the car. For 2 years was $19,200. She kept more than $90,000, I said. $90,000? At minimum. David put his hands on his head. And now, what do I do? It was a good question. A terrible question. Now, I said, you have to decide if you want to be a victim or an accomplice. Accomplice to what? To the biggest scam anyone ever pulled on me. At that moment, the apartment doorbell rang. David and I looked at each other. Are you expecting anyone? I asked. No. It rang again, insistently. David got up and went to the intercom. Who is it? He asked. FBI, answered a rough voice. We have a search warrant. David looked at me with absolute terror, and I understood that everything, absolutely everything, was just beginning. The door opened, and 3 FBI agents entered. The one in front was a big man, about 40 years old, with an unfriendly face. The other 2 were younger, but equally serious. David Martinez? Asked the big one. Yes. My son answered in a voice that was barely audible. I'm Agent Harrison. We have a search warrant. He handed him a paper. Who are you? He asked me. Robert Martinez, the father. Do you live here? No. I came to visit. Well, both of you will need to stay still while we search. The agents started going through the entire apartment. They opened drawers, looked inside closets, checked even under the sofa cushions. What are you looking for? I asked. Evidence related to Vanessa Aguirre, said Harrison, without looking up from the papers he was reviewing. Vanessa Aguirre? I repeated. Is that her real last name? You didn't know your daughter-in-law's last name? I thought it was Vanessa Rodriguez, said David. Harrison looked at me with a mixture of pity and suspicion. Vanessa Aguirre is wanted by Interpol for international fraud. Her real name is Vanessa Maldonado. She's from Colombia and has arrest warrants in 3 countries. I felt the floor open under my feet. Again. International fraud? I asked. Your wife, said Harrison, making quotes with his fingers, specializes in marrying men who have properties, taking out mortgage loans on them, and disappearing with the money. Specializes? Yes. David is the 5th husband we know of. The other 4 are in Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and Spain. David turned white as a sheet. 5th husband? He murmured. And there are probably more we don't know about yet. Harrison continued. This woman is a professional. She has false documents, accounts in several countries, and a network of contacts that help her disappear when she finishes each job. Each job? I asked. To her, you were work. Nothing more. She calculated how much she could get, made the plan, executed it, and left. One of the younger agents approached Harrison with a box full of papers. Agent, I found this in the bedroom. Harrison opened the box and started reviewing the papers. Suddenly he stopped at one and looked at me. "Mr. Martinez, did you sign this?" He handed me a paper. It was an authorization for Vanessa to conduct banking procedures in my name. "Never," I said. "I never signed that." "Are you sure?" "Completely sure. I didn't even know it existed." Harrison showed the paper to David. "And you?" David read it and shook his head. "Neither." "What is this?" "With this paper your wife could sign documents as if she were you or your father. Mortgages, loans, sales, whatever she wanted." "But that's forgery," I said. "Exactly. And it's a federal crime." They kept searching and found more things. Copies of my ID, copies of the house title, even photos of me I'd never given her. "Where did she get these photos?" Harrison asked. "I have no idea," I said, looking at the images. They were photos of me leaving work, entering my house, shopping at the supermarket. "She followed me," I murmured. "The bitch followed me and took photos." "Probably for months," Harrison confirmed. "To study your routines, know when she could act without you noticing." "And what happens now?" David asked. "Now you both are going to have to come with us to make statements. And you," he pointed at me, "are going to have to prove you weren't an accomplice." "An accomplice? I'm the victim." "Maybe. But we have to investigate. This type of scam can't be done without inside help." "I didn't help anyone." "We'll determine that." They took us to the FBI field office. We were there until 10 at night, answering questions, signing statements, trying to prove we were victims and not accomplices. When they finally let us go, David and I walked down Michigan Avenue in silence. It was cold, and there were few people. "Dad," David said, after walking several blocks. "What? What are we going to do?" "You're not going to do anything," I told him. "You're going to go to your apartment, pack your things, and come live with me." "Why?" "Because that apartment is rented with stolen money. They're going to evict you any moment, and you don't have money to pay rent." "And the house?" "We're going to lose the house." "How?" "If we can't pay the $2,000 a month loan, the bank keeps the house." David started crying again. "Dad, I ruined everything. Because of me, you're going to lose your house." "No," I told him, stopping in the middle of the street. "It wasn't because of you. It was because of that bitch. And I'm going to tell you something. She's not going to get away with this." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm going to find her, and I'm going to make her pay for everything she did to us." "Dad, she's an international criminal. She has false documents, accounts in several countries, contacts. And I have something she doesn't have," I interrupted. "What?" "Time, desire for revenge, and nothing to lose." David looked at me like I'd gone crazy. "How are you going to find her?" "I don't know. But I'm going to find her." And I meant it. For the first time in my life, I felt pure, concentrated hatred toward another person. Vanessa had stolen 5 years of my life. She'd destroyed the relationship with my son. She'd played with us like we were toys. But she'd made a mistake. She'd underestimated an old steelworker who didn't know how to give up. The days that followed were chaos. David moved to my house with 2 suitcases because everything else had stayed in the apartment he could no longer pay for. The bank started sending letters demanding mortgage payments. The lawyers explained I had very few legal options. But I wasn't thinking about legal options. I was thinking about Vanessa. I started with the basics. I went to the bank where she supposedly worked and talked to the manager. "Vanessa Rodriguez?" he said. "Yes, she worked here until 3 months ago, but her name was Vanessa Aguirre." "Why did she quit?" "She said she was leaving the country, that she'd gotten a job in Canada." "Canada?" "That's what she said. But later we found out she'd been using customer information for personal matters. That's why we're investigating her. What kind of information? Loan data, mortgages, investments, information she could use for her scams. Everything I found out confirmed the same thing. Vanessa was a professional criminal who'd planned everything from the beginning. But it also gave me clues. I went to the real estate agency that had rented the apartment. Mrs. Aguirre? The employee said. Yes, she rented the apartment. She paid 6 months in advance and left. Very strange. Left where? She didn't tell us, but she left a contact address in the United States. What address? A P.O. box in Miami. Miami. The first concrete clue. Then I went to the dealership where they'd rented the car. The white BMW? The salesman said. Yes, a blonde woman rented it. Very elegant. She paid everything in advance and then disappeared. Disappeared how? She was supposed to return the car 2 weeks ago. She never showed up. We had to go get it from the apartment, but she didn't live there anymore. And she didn't leave any contact information? Yes, but it was all fake. The phone doesn't exist, the address either. All the clues led to the same thing. Vanessa had disappeared without a trace. But I kept investigating. I got David's phone records from the bank where Vanessa had worked and started reviewing all the calls she'd made in recent months. There were calls to numbers in Colombia, to numbers in the United States, and several calls to a Miami number that repeated frequently. I called that number. Hello? Answered a woman with a foreign accent. Good morning, I said. Can I speak with Vanessa? Vanessa who? Vanessa Aguirre. There was a long silence. I don't know any Vanessa, she said, and hung up. But I already had something. I got the address for that phone number and went there. It was an old building in downtown Miami. I pressed the apartment buzzer and was answered by a woman about 50 years old, dark-haired, with an unfriendly face. What do you want? She asked without opening the door. I'm looking for Vanessa Aguirre. No Vanessa lives here. But this phone number. Look, sir, I don't know what phone number they gave you, but we don't know any Vanessa here. And if you don't leave, I'm calling the police. But when she was about to close the door, I saw something that caught my attention. On the living room table there was a photo of Vanessa with an older man. That's Vanessa, I said, pointing to the photo. The woman looked back, saw the photo, and went pale. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Yes, you do. And I know you know her. You're probably her accomplice. Leave or I'm calling the police. Call them, I said. I also have things to tell the police about your friend Vanessa. The woman stayed quiet, calculating. What do you want? She finally asked. I want to know where she is. I don't know where she is. You're part of the gang. You work together. I'm not part of anything. Then explain why you have a photo of Vanessa in your house. The woman sighed. Okay, she said. Come in. I entered the apartment. It was small and full of papers, computers, and phones. What's your name? I asked. Carmen. Carmen what? Carmen Vega. And what's your relationship with Vanessa? We're partners. Partners in what? In the business. What business? Carmen looked at me like I was very naive. The husband business, she said. Explain. Vanessa marries men who have properties. I give her technical support, false documents, banking information, contacts to launder money. And how many husbands has she had? 9. That I know of. 9. Yes. In the United States, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Spain, Canada, Chile, Argentina, and Peru. And they all lost their houses? All of them. I felt anger boiling in my stomach. Where is she now? I don't know. Carmen, don't lie to me. If you work together, you have to know where she is. The truth is, I don't know. Vanessa told me this job was going to be the last one. that afterward she was going to retire. Retire where? She didn't tell me, but I know she collected a lot of money over all these years. Millions of dollars. Millions? Yes. Vanessa is very good at this. She can take everything a man has without him realizing until it's too late. And don't you feel anything for the victims? Carmen shrugged. It's a job, she said. Nothing personal. Nothing personal? I repeated her words. Do you know that because of you, I'm going to lose my house? The house I paid for working 5 years of double shifts? Look, Mr. Robert Martinez. Look, Mr. Martinez. I understand you're angry, but Vanessa already left. She's not coming back, and you're never going to recover your money. Why are you so sure she's not coming back? Because this was her last job. She collected enough money to live the rest of her life without working. How much money did she collect? I don't know exactly, but it must be more than $2 million. $2 million, stolen from 9 families like mine. Carmen, I said, I need you to help me. With what? To find her. Why? I already told you you're not going to recover your money. I don't want to recover my money. I lied. I want revenge. Carmen looked at me with interest for the first time. What kind of revenge? The kind of revenge a woman like Vanessa deserves. And why would I help you? Because Vanessa betrayed you too. How did she betray me? Did she give you your share of the money from this last job? Carmen stayed quiet. Carmen, did Vanessa give you your share? She told me she was going to transfer the money when she reached her destination. And did she transfer it? Not yet. And when did she leave? A week ago. Carmen, Vanessa screwed you too. She left with all the money. I saw Carmen's face starting to understand. That bitch, she murmured. Exactly, I said. That bitch screwed all of us. Me, my son, and you. And what do you propose? That we work together to find her. And then what? Then we collect. Both of us. Carmen looked at me for a long time, calculating. Okay, she finally said. We're going to find her. And so began the strangest partnership of my life. Me, a 58-year-old worker, working with a professional criminal to hunt the woman who'd scammed both of us. Carmen knew things I never could have found out alone. She knew how to track international bank transfers. She knew how to get airport information. She knew how to follow the digital trail of someone who doesn't want to be found. And I had something Carmen didn't have, the pure motivation of a man who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose. In 1 week we found out Vanessa had flown from Miami to Las Vegas. In 2 weeks, we got the address of the hotel where she was staying. And in 3 weeks we had the complete plan. Vanessa thought she'd disappeared forever. She thought she could steal the lives from 9 families and live happily with the money. She was wrong. Because Robert Martinez, the old worker she'd underestimated, was about to teach her that there are things in life you can't buy with stolen money. And one of those things is the revenge of a father whose family was destroyed. Las Vegas was exactly how I'd imagined it. Colored lights that never go out, casinos full of people losing money they don't have, and the constant smell of desperation disguised as fun. But I hadn't come to gamble. I'd come to collect. Carmen had been more useful than I'd expected. In 2 weeks of working together, we'd gotten information the police didn't have. Vanessa was living at the Bellagio, under the name Victoria Maldonado, with legal Colombian documents. She had a suite on the 28th floor, and was posing as the widow of a South American businessman. How do you know all this? I'd asked Carmen. Vanessa is very predictable, she'd explained. She always uses the same pattern. Luxury hotels, rich widow identity, and she always looks for the next target in the casinos. The next target? Vanessa can't stop, Robert. She's addicted to the scam game. She's probably already looking for husband number 10. That gave me an idea. A terrible and perfect idea. I arrived in Las Vegas on a Wednesday night. Carmen had gotten me false documents. Ironically, using the same contacts she'd used to help Vanessa. Now I was Rodolfo Martin, retired Argentine businessman widower, with lots of money to spend and wanting to find company. I stayed at a more modest hotel, 10 blocks from the Bellagio. Carmen had explained that Vanessa usually frequented the casino bar between 9 and 11 at night, looking for single men who seemed to have money. "What if she recognizes me?" I'd asked. "She won't recognize you," Carmen had assured me. "You cut your hair, shaved your mustache, bought expensive clothes. Besides, you're the poor father-in-law. She never really looked at you." She was right. To Vanessa, I'd been invisible, just an obstacle between her and the money. Thursday night I entered the Bellagio. The casino was impressive. Very high ceilings, thick carpets, and the constant sound of slot machines mixed with chips falling on tables. There were people from all over the world, all losing money with forced smiles. I sat at the bar, ordered a whiskey and waited. At 9:30, I saw her. Vanessa entered the bar like she was a movie star. She wore a red dress that must have cost more than my salary for 2 months, shoes that gleamed, and jewelry I'd never seen when she was with David. She looked different, blonder hair, professional makeup, and a confidence she didn't have before. The stolen money suited her well. She sat at the bar, 3 stools from where I was, and ordered a martini. The bartender knew her. That was obvious from how he greeted her. "Good evening, Mrs. Maldonado." The usual. "Yes, thank you, Michael." Mrs. Maldonado. She wasn't even using the name she'd married my son with. I waited 20 minutes, watching her. Vanessa looked at all the men who entered the bar, analyzing them. She was looking for the next one. Carmen had been right. When I saw she was bored, I approached. "Excuse me," I said in the English I'd been practicing for weeks. "Is this seat taken?" She looked me up and down. I saw her eyes register my new suit, my watch which Carmen had lent me, and my attitude of a man with money. "No," she said, smiling. "It's free." I sat next to her and ordered another whiskey. "Are you from around here?" I asked. "No, I'm from South America." "And you?" "Argentina. Buenos Aires." I saw a flash of recognition in her eyes, but not recognition of me. It was recognition of an opportunity. "What a coincidence," she said. "I'm also from South America, Colombia, originally." "And what brought you to Las Vegas?" "My late husband was very fond of casinos," she explained with a sad smile that seemed rehearsed. "I decided to come honor his memory." "I'm very sorry," I said. "I'm also a widower." "Oh, I'm so sorry. My wife died 6 years ago. Cancer." It was true, but the way I said it was acted, just like her. "It's terrible to lose the love of your life," she said, putting a hand on mine. "Did you have children?" "A son. But we grew apart after my wife's death. Different ways of dealing with grief." I understand perfectly. Loss changes people. We talked for 2 hours. Vanessa told me the story of her late husband, a Colombian businessman who died in a car accident, leaving her very well off financially but very alone. It was a perfect performance. If I'd really been Rodolfo Martin, I would have fallen completely. I told her my invented story. Robert Martinez had been my partner in a steel business who died, leaving me as sole owner of a very prosperous company. Now I was retired, with more money than I could spend, and looking for someone to share my life with. "It's so refreshing to meet someone who understands the responsibilities that come with success," she said. "Exactly," I replied. "Most people don't understand that having a lot of money can be very lonely." When the night ended, we'd agreed to meet Friday for dinner. "Do you know a nice place?" I asked. "I know the perfect place," she said with that smile that already disgusted me. Very romantic, very private. Perfect. Friday night I met Vanessa at the Bellagio restaurant. She'd put on a black dress that must have cost a fortune. I wore my best suit and the performance of my life. During dinner, Vanessa raised the stakes. She talked about her investments, her properties in several countries, and how difficult it was to find someone who understood her lifestyle. I talked about my company, my real estate investments, and how tired I was of women who only wanted my money. Rodolfo, she said, taking my hand across the table, I feel we have a very special connection. I feel the same, Victoria. Can I confess something? Of course. It's been a long time since I felt so comfortable with a man. The same thing happens to me. After dinner, we went up to her suite. It was impressive. View of the entire city, expensive furniture, and a refrigerator full of champagne that probably cost more than what I earned in a month. Do you like it? She asked. It's beautiful, I said. It must cost a fortune to stay in a place like this. Money isn't a problem when you know how to handle it, she replied with that smile I already knew too well. We sat on the sofa with champagne glasses. Vanessa moved very close, put her head on my shoulder, and started the real show. Rodolfo, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you have properties in Argentina? There it was, the question she always asked. Yes, I said. I have a house in Buenos Aires, an apartment in Rosario, and a ranch in the countryside. Her eyes lit up. And are they all paid off? Of course. I never liked debts. You're very smart. I think the same way. She kept asking about my properties, my investments, and my future plans. It was exactly the same interrogation she'd given David 3 years earlier. Victoria, I said after an hour of acting, I'm going to be honest with you. Tell me. I like you a lot. And I think you feel something for me too. Yes, she said, moving even closer. I feel something very strong. What would you think if we got married? She stayed quiet for a few seconds, but I saw she was celebrating inside. Don't you think it's too soon? She asked, acting surprised. I'm 60 years old, I said. At this point in life, you know what you want. That's true, she said, and kissed me. It was the most disgusting kiss of my life. Yes, she said. I want to marry you. Perfect, I said. We can do it here in Las Vegas, tomorrow if you want. Tomorrow? Don't you think that's too fast? Victoria, when you find true love, why wait? That night, I stayed in her suite. We slept in the same bed, but I didn't touch her. I told her I was too much of a gentleman to do anything before marriage. She acted like it seemed very romantic. In reality, touching her would have made me vomit. Saturday morning we went to one of those chapels in Las Vegas. Vanessa put on a short white dress, and I wore my best suit. There was even a photographer. The Reverend was an actor who did 5 ceremonies a day. Rodolfo Martin, do you take Victoria Maldonado as your lawful wife? I do. Victoria Maldonado, do you take Rodolfo Martin as your lawful husband? I do. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Vanessa kissed me, like she really loved me. It was the performance of her life. It was also her last. That night, already as husband and wife, we went to dinner at an expensive restaurant. Vanessa was euphoric. She thought she'd found husband number 10, the big score that would set her up comfortably forever. Rodolfo, she said during dessert, I have a business proposal for you. What kind of proposal? I have a contact at a bank in Miami who can get us very favorable loans using our properties as collateral. Loans for what? To invest in real estate in the United States. We can triple our capital in less than a year. The same shit she'd pulled on David. Sounds interesting, I said. What do you need from me? Just for you to sign some papers. I'll handle all the procedures. What papers? Nothing complicated. Just authorizations, so I can manage your accounts while you're traveling. Perfect, I said. But first I want to show you something. What? I took a photo from my pocket. The photo of David on his birthday, when I gave him the house. Vanessa looked at the photo, and her face completely changed. Where did you get that photo? She asked. From my wallet, I said. It's a photo of my son. Your son? Yes, David Martinez. Do you know him? Vanessa went white as paper. No, she murmured. I don't know him. Strange, I said. Because he told me he was married to a Vanessa, a very pretty blonde who worked at a bank. Vanessa jumped up from the table. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. But she wasn't acting anymore. She was terrified. Sit down, I said. No. Sit down, Vanessa, or Victoria, or whatever the hell your real name is. I'm leaving. You're not going anywhere, I said. And my voice sounded so cold it surprised even me. Vanessa looked around the restaurant, calculating if she could escape. If you scream, if you make a scene, if you try to leave, I said very quietly, everyone in this restaurant will know you're an international con artist wanted by Interpol. She sat down. What do you want? She asked. I want you to give me back everything you stole from me. I didn't steal anything from you. You stole 5 years of my life. You stole the house I was going to leave my son. You stole my relationship with my family. I didn't know you were David's father. Lie. You knew exactly who I was. That's why you followed me. That's why you took photos of me. Vanessa stayed quiet. $130,000, I said. That's what you owe me. I don't have that money. Yes, you do. And you have much more. What do you want me to do? I want you to transfer $130,000 to an account I'm going to give you. And if you don't, tomorrow the Las Vegas police will know where you are, and so will Interpol. You don't know where I am. You're in Suite 2847 of the Bellagio, registered as Victoria Maldonado. You have accounts at Citibank in Miami, HSBC in London, and Banco Santander in Madrid. Should I continue? Vanessa looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. How do you know all that? Because I'm not the old fool you thought I was? Who are you really? I'm Robert Martinez, the father-in-law you underestimated. This is impossible. What's impossible? That a steel worker is smarter than you? That he could follow you here? That he could fool you the same way you fooled me? Vanessa started crying. But they weren't real tears. They were calculated tears. Robert, please, don't call me Robert. To you I'm Mr. Martinez. Mr. Martinez, I can explain. You have nothing to explain. You have something to pay. How much do you want? Everything. What do you mean, everything? All the money you stole, from me, from David, and from the other 8 husbands. That's impossible. Nothing is impossible. Carmen helped me track all your accounts. Carmen? Carmen Vega? Your ex-partner. The one you also betrayed. Carmen is going to kill me. Carmen isn't going to do anything to you. But I am. What are you going to do to me? I took out my phone and dialed a number. Who are you calling? She asked, terrified. The FBI, I said. They're waiting for my call. No. You have 5 minutes to decide. Either you transfer everything you have to me, or I spend the rest of my life making sure you rot in jail. Vanessa looked at me with pure hatred. You don't understand, she said, that money isn't just mine. I work for very dangerous people. If I give them your money, they're going to kill me. That's your problem, I said. Not mine. Roberto, please. 4 minutes. Vanessa took out her phone and started making calls. She spoke in Spanish, in English, in Portuguese. She was transferring money from all her accounts. When she finished, She looked at me with hatred that scared me. Done, she said. I transferred $2 million to you. All the money I had. Perfect, I said. Now what? Now you leave. You leave Las Vegas. You leave the United States, and you never come back. And if I don't leave, if you don't leave, Carmen will find you. And Carmen isn't as generous as I am. Vanessa stood up from the table. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is, I said. For you, everything is over. That was the last time I saw Vanessa. The next day when I went to look for her at the Bellagio, she was already gone. Carmen confirmed she'd flown to Europe with false documents. And the money? Carmen asked. Here it is, I said, showing her my phone. $2 million. And now what do we do? Now, I said, we return what belongs to each one. And that's what we did. Carmen helped me find Vanessa's other 8 victims. We returned their money, with interest. David and I had enough left to pay off the mortgage and start over. But the most important thing wasn't the money. The most important thing was that I'd proven that no one, absolutely no one, can screw Robert Martinez with impunity. And that an old steelworker can be much more dangerous than any international con artist can imagine. Vanessa had underestimated the wrong person, and she'd paid the full price. 6 months after Las Vegas, I'm sitting in my backyard drinking coffee and watching the cherries grow on the tree I planted where Martha's flower bed used to be. David is inside, cooking Sunday dinner. He learned after Vanessa disappeared. He had to learn many things. The house was never lost. With the money I recovered from Vanessa, I paid off the entire mortgage at once. The bank didn't understand how a steelworker had come up with $130,000 overnight, but the paperwork was clean and the money was legitimate. Well, as legitimate as stolen money can be when it's returned to its rightful owner. David divorced Vanessa for abandonment. It was easy because the marriage had been with false documents. She was never really Vanessa Rodriguez. The judge annulled everything, as if it had never existed, which was exactly what we wanted. I kept my word to all of Vanessa's other victims. There was a businessman from Phoenix who cried when I deposited $200,000 into his account. The money Vanessa had stolen from him 2 years earlier. An architect from Austin who'd lost 3 properties. A doctor from Miami who'd had to sell his practice to pay the debts she'd left him. They all had the same story. They'd all met a beautiful woman who fell in love with them very quickly, married very quickly, and disappeared very quickly with everything they had. Carmen kept her word. She helped me find the other victims of Vanessa, and we returned their money. There was a businessman from Phoenix who cried when I deposited $200,000. The money Vanessa had stolen from him 2 years ago. An architect from Austin who had lost 3 properties. A doctor from Miami who had to sell his clinic to pay the debts she left him. For the first time, in 10 years of working with Vanessa, we returned every penny. Why are we doing this? Carmen asked me. Because there's a difference between stealing to survive and stealing for pleasure. I told her. Vanessa stole for pleasure. We're setting things right. Carmen used her share of the money to leave the country and start a new life. She sent me a postcard from Portugal. Thank you for teaching me it's never too late to do the right thing. Agent Harrison called me a month after returning from Las Vegas. Martinez, he said. Officially, I don't know anything about what happened in the United States, but unofficially, I want to tell you that you did something we couldn't do in 5 years of investigation. What did I do? Stop Vanessa Maldonado. Since you found her, she's completely disappeared. There have been no more victims. And that's good? That's very good. That woman had ruined dozens of families. You know where she is. The last information we have is that she's somewhere in Eastern Europe, but without money, without contacts, and without her support network. She's probably working as a waitress in some dive bar. I liked that image. David took several months to become the son I remembered. Vanessa's betrayal had destroyed him inside. He didn't trust anyone, didn't leave the house, didn't want anything to do with women. "Dad," he said to me one night, "how did I not realize what she was?" "Because she was very good at what she did," I told him. "And because you were 26 and in love. At that age you believe love can conquer everything. And now, what do I do? Now you live your life. You work, you go out with friends, you meet new people. And if someday you find someone worthwhile, you get married and have children. Aren't you afraid the same thing will happen to me?" "No," I told him, "because now you know what to look for, and you know what to avoid." David went back to work, bought a used car with his share of the recovered money, and slowly started rebuilding his life. Last month he told me he was dating a girl from the office, an accountant from Dearborn, daughter of an electrician and a teacher, who lives with her parents and doesn't have accounts in foreign banks. "Do you want to meet her?" he asked. "When you're ready," I told him. "I think I'm ready now." Next week he's bringing her home. Her name is Patricia. She's 28 years old, and according to David, she's the closest thing to Mom I've ever met. I like that. I went back to work at the steel mill, like nothing had happened. Miller, my supervisor, asked me once where I'd gotten the money to pay off the house. "I won the lottery." I lied. "Really? Really? How much did you win?" "Enough." He never asked again. The guys at the mill noticed I'm different, calmer, more confident. Some think it's because I resolved the house situation. Others think it's because my son moved in with me and I have company. They don't know it's because I learned something I didn't know before, that Robert Martinez isn't just a steel worker. He's a man who can do things he never believed possible when necessary, who can outsmart a professional con artist, who can travel to another country and execute a perfect revenge plan, who can recover $2 million using only his intelligence and determination. I'm not the same man I was a year ago. I'm better. Sometimes, when I'm drinking coffee in the yard, I think about Martha. I tell her quietly what happened, as if she could hear me. I kept the promise. I tell her, David has his house. It's not the house I originally bought him, but he has a house, and he has a father who learned that you should never underestimate what a man can do when they mess with his family. The other day, I found a letter in the mailbox. No return address. Postmark from Rome. "Robert," it said, "I hope you're happy with what you achieved. But remember, there are people who don't forgive, and some revenge takes years to arrive. Victoria." I showed the letter to David. "Are you worried?" he asked. "No," I told him. "If Vanessa wants to play with me again, let her come. I already know how to beat her. And if she sends other people, let them send whoever they want. Now I know something I didn't know before." "What?" "I know that when you're right, when you're fighting for your family, when you have nothing left to lose, you're more dangerous than any professional criminal. And if something happens to you, if something happens to me, David already knows the whole story, and David is no longer the naive kid he was before. If something happens to me, he'll finish what I started. That's the truth. David changed. He's no longer the boy who believed everyone in the world was good. Now he knows there are bad people in the world, but he also knows there are good people willing to fight against evil. And he knows his old man isn't just a steelworker. He's a man who hunted down the woman who tried to destroy his family, and who would do it again if necessary. Vanessa's story ended in Las Vegas, but Robert Martinez's story just began that day. Because at 58 years old, I learned it's never too late to discover what you're made of. And I'm made of steel. The same steel I work with every day at the mill. Resistant, durable, and lethal when necessary. The end.